Every leader knows that a thriving organization depends on the energy, productivity, and commitment of its people. But few leaders are able to cultivate the employee engagement and performance needed for this level of success. What's the difference? Positive leadership practices. Welcome to the Positive Leadership Movement Podcast with your host, positive work culture expert, Alex Bratty. Ready to harness the power of positive leadership? Let's dive right in.
Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Positive Leadership Movement. I'm your host, Alex Bratty, and in this episode, you're going to discover what makes positive leadership work? And why is it that when led by positive leaders, employees and organizations thrive and reach exceptional levels of achievement? Plus, we'll talk about how you can start implementing some positive leadership practices that are super simple yet have a profound effect. All right, so let's jump in. We talked in the last episode about what positive leadership is and is not, and we also discussed some of the incredible results that come from implementing positive leadership practices. For example, taking a company from a deficit of $80 million to a profit of $20 million in just 1 year. Merging two competitors and managing to not only retain 98% of the clients, but also increase employee satisfaction and grow revenue by 20%. Yep, those are some serious numbers. And remember, what sets this podcast apart is that I'm only ever going to share with you proven strategies that have been tried, tested, and validated, that have real evidence behind them. So with such great results like that, you might be wondering, okay, great, Alex, but how or why does it work? And that's the question that Janice T asked, and that I've been asked many times. So here's the answer. And I'll give you an in-the-weeds nerdy answer first, and then we'll unpack it, okay? Positive leadership works because of the heliotropic effect. The what? Yes, totally random word, right? The heliotropic effect. Okay, do not panic. I am not going to go and get super wonky, super sciencey on you, okay, and start trotting out other weird terms. That is the only one you'll hear today. And frankly, it is just a very fancy way of saying it's the search for light. What do I mean by that? Well, you know when you put a plant near a window, it will grow towards the light. Right? When you walk into a dark room, probably the first thing you're going to do is look for the light switch to turn on the light. We look for the light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, I could go on, but basically the search for light is a basic instinct of all living entities. Okay. And particularly for us as humans, it serves us well, right? I mean, better to confront an assailant in the light than in the dark, right? I mean, it has an adaptive sense to it, but it also serves as so much more than that. This heliotropic effect really means that people seek what is naturally beneficial for them, what is life-giving, right? So just as the light is life-giving to the plant, we humans seek what is life-giving for us. And when that is translated to the workplace, what it looks like is finding meaning in work, being satisfied with what we do, being engaged, and feeling like we're valued and able to contribute to something bigger than ourselves. Let me give you some different examples for how the heliotropic effect, or this search for light and search for good, life-giving sources, occurs in multiple different ways in life, okay? So take, for example, the Pygmalion effect, which has been proven over and over, and particularly in the classroom. So let's say we take one large group of students who are all roughly the same academic capability. And at the beginning of the school year, we divide them into 3 groups, and we, assign them to 3 different teachers. And we tell the first teacher, these kids have some real problems. It is going to take a lot to help these kids thrive. We tell the next teacher, these kids come from diverse backgrounds. It's going to take a lot to help these kids thrive. And we tell the third teacher, these kids are high achievers. It's going to take a lot to help them get to the next level and truly flourish. Then the teachers teach the kids for 1 year, and at the end of the year, they get a standardized test. The results, The kids described as high achievers score much higher than the kids in the other groups. Why? Because of the teacher expectations. So if teachers think they have a group of kid geniuses, the teachers are more engaged, they're more caring, and they cultivate a positive learning environment. And what happens then? The kids lean towards the light. They lean towards this life-giving positivity that this teacher is creating for them. And essentially, those expectations, those teacher expectations affect performance. And this phenomenon, by the way, has been observed also in different settings. For example, in the armed forces, when it comes to training recruits, they'll talk about how the expectation of those drill sergeants, those training soldiers, have the impact on the recruits in terms of how successful they'll be and their performance. Here's another example. A doctor, imagine this, a doctor places a drop of cold virus at the base of your nose, okay? And we do this for several people. Some people get sick with the cold virus and some people don't. Why is that? Well, it turns out that it's related to our emotional state. Positive, happy, optimistic people are significantly less likely to get sick than negative, sad, or depressed people. In fact, there are numerous studies that show that positive, happy, optimistic people live longer than those negative, sad, or depressed people. And so our emotions really matter. And what is part of being a happy or optimistic person? It's cultivating a positive mindset and putting yourself in a positive environment where, just like the plant towards the light, you can grow and thrive. Now, I could go on and on, but here's just one last example, which I think is particularly salient for the workplace. A group of people were offered $100 to improve their bowling score within 30 days. Okay, so they have a reasonable incentive to do this. So everybody goes down to the bowling alley to set a baseline measure, and at that time they are filmed while they're bowling. And then they're divided into two groups. One group was shown only the footage of when they were performing well, when they were getting strikes and spares, right? The other group was shown only when they did badly, so they could see where they needed to improve. Which group do you think showed the greater improvement? Who won the $100? Well, the group that only looked at how well they had done, or the group that was actually shown where they needed to improve their game. Like, who do we think that's going to be? It was the group that had been shown their successes. They improved significantly more than those who had seen their failures and where they needed to get better. Now, at face value, this may seem a little counterintuitive, right? Especially when you think about any other sport or activity you may have tried to learn or get better at. I mean, you work on your golf swing or shooting more hoops or, I don't know, learning the guitar, right? We make a lot of mistakes when we're learning a new skill, when we're trying to improve. We don't do it right. We fail way more than we succeed. So how is it then that we don't learn how to be bad at something instead of learning how to be good at something over time? Well, it's the same in the workplace, right? When someone starts in a new position, they're going to make mistakes. They're going to do some things badly. Yet, most people get better, right? And they learn how to be good at their job. Why is that? Well, the answer, and it's in all of these examples, is this heliotropic effect, or this search for what is life-giving. As humans, we are programmed to lean towards the light, towards what is good, towards what is working effectively, towards the positive. And that, in a nutshell, is why positive leadership works. Because positive leadership is all about cultivating a positive climate in which employees work, the positive relationships that they have with one another, the positive communication that exists, and creating positive meaning in the work that they're doing. Now, when I share this information with people, nearly always the very next question is, how can I create the heliotropic effect in my organization where employees are performing way better because they're happier and they're operating in a supportive environment? Now, there are numerous positive leadership practices that can be used, and we will get to those in future episodes. But right now, today, in this episode, we're going to look at just one way that is not only super simple, it is highly effective. And it's one that you may have heard of before. It's practicing gratitude. You see, when people engage in gratitude practices, they are physically healthier, they think faster and more creatively, they perform better. And it's because engaging in gratitude increases how frequently and regularly we're experiencing positive emotions. And what do we say about the positive? Humans are programmed to lean towards it. And when they do, they perform better. So, just by implementing some type of gratitude practice in your organization, you can start to create a positive climate. It also helps for cultivating positive relationships and communications. I mean, think about that for a minute. If your colleagues are expressing gratitude to you for what you do you think that helps increase positive meaning at work as well? You betcha. The beauty of a gratitude practice is that it hits all 4 areas of positive leadership: the climate, the relationships, the communication, and finding meaning. All right, so how do you do it? Well, take your pick from these 6 different methods that I am going to share with you. So some companies have literally, and this is, big organizations with thousands of employees, literally handed out journals and said, this is your gratitude journal. We want you to record in it every day 3 things for which you are grateful. 3 different things every day for which you're grateful. And it has a big effect. And that's it. That's all they're doing. They hand out the journal and they tell them, do your gratitude journal every day. Okay, now obviously, if you're going to start that and it's a brand new practice, you may want to send out reminder emails to employees like, hey, did you do your gratitude journal today, right? So that people start to get in the habit, because we all know starting a new habit can take a little effort, but once you get in the groove of something, then it's smooth sailing after that, right? So keep a gratitude journal, have your employees keep a gratitude journal, give them the books, give them the pens, tell them to write down every day 3 things for which they're grateful. And of course, they can share it with each other too, right? Like when you share this, of course, it amplifies the effect of it. So that's the first way. The second way is what's called the gratitude letter. Now, this one is not one that you do regularly, although you can, but it involves a little bit more, and it definitely has huge effects. So with this one, you think of someone in your life that has had a really impactful effect on you, on the course of your life. And perhaps you've thanked them before, but maybe not as profoundly as you'd like, because they maybe don't recognize just how much impact they had on you. And so you write a letter to this person and be specific about what you're grateful for with them. And then you go in person and read this letter to them. And always, of course, there's a lot of tears in all of this. There's a lot of emotion. And then you discuss the letter, And you can just imagine that if you just for 1 minute think of someone who has really meant a lot in your life that you're so grateful for, if you went and did this, it would be highly impactful, both for you and for them. And see, that's one of the key pieces here is that, especially in this letter example, it's not just the recipient of the gratitude that benefits, it's the person offering the gratitude benefits too. And so again, you start to create an amplification, a ripple effect with this practice. Another way to do this is one woman who actually had been suffering for cancer and had been given just, a limited time to live. She decided that she would start to note each day perfect moments with others. Okay, just when there was a really wonderful interaction, a really meaningful interaction, she would note it down, and then she would review these at the end of the week, and she would do these with the people that she'd had these what she called perfect moments with them. And again, so this is the interaction of one person sharing their gratitude for these perfect moments and letting another person know, and both people are getting the benefit from this. Here's another one, number 4, gratitude cards. So there are some CEOs who practice this. Get gratitude cards, have just a stack of cards, literally paper cards on your desk, and write 5 a day to someone in the organization, right? So 5 different people, 5 different cards. And the CEOs who have done this said it actually kind of forces them to look at what's going well. And it works. They report that it has truly changed the culture. And they're doing this years after they started it, right? I mean, if you've got a smaller organization, maybe you don't need to write 5 cards a day. but write 1, write 2, write 3, but get in the habit of doing it. Because think about it. Think about your employee receiving a gratitude card from you for the work that they're doing and letting them know how much they're valued. Do you think that's going to have an impact? I think maybe. Yeah. All right, number 5. Now, this one you got to be a little careful about, okay? Positively embarrass someone, okay? Which means that you compliment someone in front of another person who cares, okay? So let's say, you've got your team, the manager is managing the team, and so if you start this culture, someone on the team would call out another person, their peer, for doing a great job and thank them for it and really compliment them and do it in front of the manager and the rest of the team, okay? So it's positive embarrassment. Now, the reason you got to be a little careful with this is that people react to this differently, okay? You have to recognize that people have a different threshold for being, for want of a better word, exposed in this way, right? So for some people, there's nothing they'd like more than being at a big conference and the CEO calling them up in front of 10,000 people to say what a great job they had, and for all those accolades to be heard right there on the stage and to be in the spotlight. For other people, they'd rather stick needles in their eyes than do that, okay? They'd rather perhaps receive an email where the team is copied, or perhaps there's some way of letting people know in the workplace, but not kind of putting that person on the spot. So if you're going to do this, do take people's personalities and their preferences into consideration, okay? And if you're a leader of a team and you want to start this, then you should look at your team and ask them, okay, we're going to do this. Let me know your preference for how you would want to be, quote unquote, positively embarrassed, okay? All right, and here's the last one, and this one, I just love it so much. So if you have one of these other pieces working and you're already thanking your employees, you're creating this culture of gratitude between employees and between teams and within teams, you can go a step further. And you can really create a ripple effect, and that is by offering gratitude to the families of your employees. Writing a note to such and such's spouse or to their son or daughter and saying, we just want you to know how much we value your dad, how important he is to our company, the work he is doing is so meaningful, et cetera, et cetera. How do you think that goes over? Do you think that has a powerful effect both on that employee and their family? And think about the effect of that as the family shares that story with other people, right? I mean, that is the definition of a ripple effect right there. Now, can we just take a moment? How simple are these practices? They are so simple, it's not even funny, okay? And most of them cost nothing financially. Okay, maybe they cost 5 minutes of time per day, but as return on investment goes, it's going to be hard to beat the return on this, okay? In fact, using gratitude practices in organizations has resulted in so many positive outcomes, including employees being more likely to get promoted, to perform better team communication, happier employees, the list goes on and on. And there are really 2 reasons why this works, okay? The first is that by engaging in a daily gratitude practice, it trains your brain to look for the positive, for what's going well, for what opportunities exist that we may be able to build on. And this is important because our brains are actually programmed to look for the negative, right? And that's an adaptive, evolutionary part of who we are as humans, right? We're scanning the environment for what could be a threat to us, okay? That comes from back in primitive days when, we're just like out there hunting for food in the middle of the Serengeti. Of course, we're going to be searching the horizon for some huge lion that wants to come and eat us for their dinner. Life is not quite like that anymore, but still our brain functions in that way. Our amygdala, our reptile brain, is still, the default is to scan the environment for negatives. So Doing this practice is actually a reprogramming of your brain to look for the positive, to default into that. And that is a very powerful shift in mindset. Now, the second reason these gratitude practices work is that people in the organization start to feel more appreciated and valued. Well, go figure. And what do you think that does for their performance? It skyrockets it. And both of these, okay, scanning for the positive and feeling valued, are the heliotropic effect at work. Humans leaning into what's good and positive, being nurtured in it, and thriving as a result. So, there you have it, Janice T. Positive leadership works because of the heliotropic effect, which essentially just means that human beings lean towards what is good and positive and life-giving, because that is where they can grow and reach levels of optimal functioning. And the fastest, simplest, most cost-effective way that you can start to create this heliotropic effect in your organization is to implement some type of daily gratitude practice for you and for everyone in the organization. Okay, this isn't just I'll have my employees do it. You need to do it too so that you experience this. And I'm telling you, try it for a month, and I promise you, you'll see a transformation in your workplace. And the best part, once people start this, once they get in the habit of doing it, they love it. They don't want to stop. So it's easy to sustain this very simple practice over the long run. All right, thanks for joining me on this episode of the Positive Leadership Movement. I'm your host, Alex Bratty, and it is truly my privilege to serve you with proven strategies that can help your organization to flourish. Join me next week when we'll be discussing the number one untapped resource in organizations. Are you, like many others, unwittingly making this mistake and missing out on the opportunity to leverage this resource? Want to find out? Tune in next week and I'll share with you exactly what this resource is and how you can tap into it immediately. Oh, and guess what? It won't cost you a dime to do that. Gotta love that, right? All right, I look forward to being with you again next week. If you've got a question about positive leadership, let me know at alex@happinessatworknow.com and I'll answer it in a future episode. For now, this is Alex Bratty signing off and wishing you a positively positive week.
Make sure you subscribe to the show. If you like this episode, please rate and review. If you want to get more from Alex, check out Happiness at Work, where she provides leaders with a proven path to cultivate a positive work culture that increases performance, productivity, and profitability. Go to happinessatworknow.com. Join us next week and harness the power of positive leadership for your organization.